The badge and the broken silence. The night was too quiet for a city that never slept. Streetlights blinked against the drizzle, and the hum of traffic faded as the clock struck midnight. In the distance, red and blue lights painted the rain-soaked asphalt. Colors of authority, of control. And standing in the center of that flickering light was Officer Daniel Creed, a man whose badge shone brighter than his conscience ever did. "License and registration," he said. His voice low, calm, practiced. The woman behind the wheel, Maya Torres, handed them over with trembling hands. She wasn't speeding. She hadn't done anything wrong. But she knew this look, the one that said, "I can do anything and no one will stop me." Creed's flashlight moved from her face to her chest to her hands, back to her face again. "You know why I pulled you over?" he asked. Maya shook her head. "No, officer." Step out of the vehicle." Her stomach tightened. Something was off. She had seen his name on the local news before. Officer Creed, the department's hero, the man who'd cleaned up the streets. But in her neighborhood, people whispered another story. About the girl who never came home after being stopped by him. About the boy whose bruises were called resisting arrest. Maya stepped out, the cold air cutting through her jacket. Creed circled her car like a predator. "You from around here?" "Yes, working late. I just got off my shift at the hospital." "Ah," he smirked. "So you saved lives." He leaned in closer, too close. The smell of coffee and arrogance filled her lungs. "What's your name again?" "Maya Torres," he smiled. "Pretty name." The rain picked up. The silence thickened. Maya glanced at his badge number, burned it into her memory. She didn't know it yet, but that small act would later save her life. "Look," she said, trying to keep her voice steady. "If I didn't break any laws, can I just... Don't tell me how to do my job." His voice snapped like a whip. A flash of thunder rolled across the sky. Creed took one slow step forward. "You think people like you can talk back to me?" Maya's heart pounded. "People like you?" She'd heard that tone before. In classrooms, in back offices, in the quiet places where people with power let the mask slip. "I didn't mean... Hands on the hood." Her hands froze midair. "For what reason?" His eyes darkened. "Do it," she obeyed. The metal burned her palms. She could hear his boots scrape against the pavement as he approached, and then a second set of headlights cut through the rain. A car pulled up behind them. Another officer stepped out, a woman. "Creed," she called. "What's going on here?" Creed straightened instantly, his voice suddenly professional. "Routine stop, Officer Lee." Suspect was acting nervous. Officer Renee Lee looked at Maya, then at Creed, then at the camera clipped to his vest. Red light off. Hers, meanwhile, blinked steadily. "Her taillight's fine," Lee said softly. "You said this was a moving violation?" Creed's jaw tightened. "I've got it under control." Lee stepped closer to Maya. "Ma'am, you can go." "Sorry for the inconvenience." Creed didn't move. For a moment, the air between the two officers crackled with something unspoken. Fear, maybe, or complicity. Maya slid back into her car, shaking. Before she drove off, she saw it. The way Creed glared at Lee like a man promising revenge. And when their eyes met through the mirror, Maya made herself a promise too. He's not going to scare me into silence. The next morning, the city woke up to sunshine, traffic, and headlines about Officer Creed receiving another commendation for excellence. Maya scrolled through the article as she sipped burnt hospital coffee. The comment section was full of praise. Our hero. Protecting the innocent. A true example of law enforcement. Her stomach churned. That night, she typed up a report about the incident. She detailed the stop, the threats, the way his camera was off. She submitted it to the department's Internal Affairs Division. She didn't expect a reply. But she sent it anyway 2 weeks later. She got one. A curt email. Subject, investigation update. Your complaint against Officer Creed has been reviewed and found to be unsubstantiated. No further action will be taken. Maya read it twice. Then a third time. The words burned. Unsubstantiated. Her co-workers noticed the change in her. The once laughing nurse became quiet, distracted. Every siren outside made her flinch. One evening, her friend and fellow nurse Carla cornered her in the break room. "What's going on, Maya?" "You've been off for weeks." Maya hesitated. "You remember that cop I told you about? The one who pulled me over?" Carla frowned. "The creep?" "Yeah, I filed a complaint. They closed it." No evidence, Carla sighed. Maya, it's his word against yours. You're not the first woman he's done this to. My cousin, your cousin? Carla bit her lip. Yeah, she filed one too. It went nowhere. She moved out of state. Maya leaned forward. Do you still have her number? That night, Maya called the number. A woman's tired voice answered. Hello? Hi, my name's Maya. I think we both had run-ins with Officer Creed. There was silence on the line. Then a shaky breath. You too? They talked for hours. Different stories, same pattern. Traffic stops, intimidation. Touches that weren't accidents. Complaints that vanished. When Maya hung up, she stared at her phone for a long time. Something inside her hardened. If the system wouldn't protect women like them, she would make sure the world heard their voices anyway. She started small, recording her story on video. No names, no dates, just her voice. He thought his badge made him untouchable. But power isn't immunity. It's a test. She uploaded it anonymously. Within days, it had thousands of views. Hundreds of women commented. I know who you're talking about. He did this to me too. I thought I was the only one, the city began to whisper. And so did the police department. Inside his precinct, Creed was seething. You seeing this crap? He barked, slamming his phone onto the table. Officer Lee looked up from her desk. What? This video. Some liar trying to ruin my name. Internal Affairs is sniffing around again. You think that's a coincidence? Lee's gaze flicked to the red light on her camera, always on. Maybe they should be sniffing. Creed's face twisted. Watch your mouth. But something flickered behind her eyes. Resolve. The kind that didn't need volume to make noise. 2 nights later, Maya came home to find her car window smashed and a single note on her windshield. Stop talking. Her breath hitched. Her phone buzzed, unknown number. A text followed. Last warning. She sat on the couch, shaking. For the first time since the night she met him, she felt small again. Vulnerable. Alone. But then her phone buzzed again. This time from Carla. We're with you. Don't stop. Attached was a link. There's justice for Maya, already trending. Maya didn't start the hashtag. Someone else did. Maybe Carla. Maybe Lee. Maybe one of the hundreds of women who saw her video and realized they weren't alone. And as the story spread, the pressure mounted. The media started asking questions. The police chief called a press conference, and Officer Creed, whose smile once charmed the cameras, looked more like a man cornered than a hero. He showed up at Maya's workplace 2 days later. She was stepping out of the hospital when his cruiser pulled up. He leaned out the window. We need to talk. Maya froze. You're not supposed to contact me. He laughed. Supposed to? Who's going to stop me? Get away from me. He stepped out of the car, lowering his voice. You don't know what you're getting into, sweetheart. You think the department cares about you? About any of this? They'll throw you to the wolves the second it gets ugly. Maya met his gaze. I'd rather face wolves than cowards. His eyes went cold. Careful, Torres. You're playing with fire. She stepped closer, her voice trembling but steady. So are you. Only difference is, when this burns down, I'll walk through the flames. You'll choke on the smoke. That night, Lee knocked on Maya's door. How did you find me? Maya asked. Lee hesitated. Because I'm done being quiet too. She handed Maya a small flash drive. Footage, Lee said. From my body cam. That night, Maya's eyes widened. But your camera, I told you. Mine was on. Maya's hand shook as she plugged it into her laptop. The screen flickered. There was the rain, the flashing lights, the trembling voice she remembered. And then, Creed. His tone, his words, the sneer when he thought no one was watching. Proof. For the first time, she had proof. The next morning, the video went live. Not anonymous this time. Maya showed her face, her name, and her truth. And beside her, Officer Renee Lee, her ally, her witness. The world watched. The media exploded. The department scrambled, and Daniel Creed, once the untouchable officer, was served with a court summons. But he wasn't going down without a fight. He hired the best lawyer money could buy. He called in favors from judges, captains, old friends in the system. He was sure he could twist the narrative, turn Maya into the liar. And when the first hearing was scheduled, he smiled at the cameras and said, Some people are trying to ruin good cops for fame, but the truth will win. He had no idea how right he was. Only, It wouldn't be his truth, the court of shadows. The courthouse smelled of old wood, cold coffee, and nerves. Rain beat softly against the windows as Maya Torres sat at the plaintiff's table. Hands clasped, her heartbeat loud in her ears. Across the aisle sat Officer Daniel Creed, the man who once believed he was above the law. His blue suit was immaculate. His badge, now suspended, glimmered faintly under the lights like a ghost of power long gone. The cameras outside had been merciless. Hero cop falsely accused? Read one headline. Viral nurse faces department giant, read another. But inside this courtroom, it wasn't about hashtags or public sympathy. It was about hashtags or public sympathy. It was about the truth and whether anyone would dare to see it. Creed leaned toward his attorney, Marcus Denning, a man with silver hair and a smile that could make guilt look noble. She looks nervous, Creed whispered. We'll crush her. Denning gave a curt nod. Just keep that hero face on. We're not proving you're innocent, we're proving she's unbelievable. Maya caught the whisper but didn't flinch. She'd heard worse. Her attorney, Asha Patel, glanced at her. You ready for this? Maya nodded. I've been ready since the night he pulled me over. The judge entered, stern, deliberate, the kind of man who'd seen every flavor of lie. All rise, chairs scraped. Silence followed. People versus Daniel Creed, the clerk announced. Charges include misconduct, abuse of authority, and obstruction of justice. Creed's jaw clenched. He had faced gang members, armed suspects, and riots, but nothing felt as threatening as a woman who refused to be afraid of him. The prosecutor began by playing the footage from Officer Lee's body cam. The courtroom fell. Silent. Rain. Headlights. The cold tone of a man drunk on. Control Creed's voice echoed through the speakers. Don't tell me how to do my job. You think people like you can talk back to me? The audience murmured. Reporters scribbled furiously. Lee sat behind Maya, hands folded, eyes fixed straight ahead. She looked both guilty and brave, a woman finally choosing the right side of history. Creed's lawyer rose as soon as the video ended. Objection, Your Honor. The footage doesn't prove misconduct, it only shows my client performing a lawful stop. Judge. Objection overruled, continue. Denning smirked. He had expected that. His real attack would come later. When it was Maya's turn to take the stand, she felt her legs go weak. Asha whispered, Speak from your truth, not from fear. Maya walked to the witness box. Every eye in the room followed her. State your name for the record. The prosecutor said, Maya Torres. Can you describe what happened on the night of March 17th? Maya inhaled. He stopped me. No reason given. He ordered me out of my car, called me names, got close, too close. I was terrified. When another officer arrived, he changed his tone. Her voice cracked. She steadied it. I knew something was wrong. I filed a report. They dismissed it. So I spoke publicly. Why did you go public? Because silence only protects the powerful. A murmur rippled through the crowd. The judge banged his gavel. Order. Asha gave a faint smile. That's all, Your Honor. Then came the cross-examination. Marcus Denning rose like a snake uncoiling. Miss Torres, he began, voice smooth as oil. You're a nurse, correct? Yes. Long hours? Stressful work? Yes. Ever make mistakes when you're tired? Maya frowned. Everyone does, but that... So it's possible you misremembered details that night? No. You sure? It was dark. Raining. You said yourself you were afraid. Fear does strange things to the mind. I remember everything, he smiled coldly. Including the part where you looked up his badge number? Sounds like you planned this. I remembered it because I was scared. So you admit you were emotional. Unstable even? Asha shot up. Objection. Argumentative. Withdrawn. Denning turned to the jury. Miss Torres, have you ever had conflicts with authority figures before? She blinked. What does that have to do with... Answer the question. No. None at all? Not even disciplinary actions at work? Asha stood. Objection. Irrelevant. Sustained, said the judge. Denning leaned on the podium. You uploaded a video online accusing an officer of misconduct before going to court. Isn't that true? Yes. Would you say that video went viral? Yes. So you gained attention, followers, and sympathy. Maybe even a platform. I didn't want a platform. I wanted justice, he smiled thinly. Of course. The way he said it made every syllable sound like liar. Maya felt her pulse pounding in her ears. She looked toward the jury, some skeptical, some sympathetic. Her truth was a fragile flame, and he was trying to snuff it out with smoke. At recess, Maya stepped into the hallway, leaning against the marble wall. Lee joined her, offering a bottle of water. "You did good." Maya shook her head. "He twisted everything. That's what they do. But truth isn't always about who talks louder. It's about who doesn't back down." Maya looked at her. "Why did you risk your job for me?" Lee's eyes softened. "Because I saw myself in you. Years ago, I watched him do things. Said nothing. Told myself it wasn't my place. But silence makes you his partner." "I was done being that." Maya's throat tightened. "Thank you." "You don't thank me," Lee said. "You win." Back in court, Creed took the stand. He adjusted his tie, feigning composure. His lawyer had coached him to look contrite but confident. "Officer Creed," the prosecutor began, "how long have you served in the department?" 13 years. "And in those 13 years, have you ever faced disciplinary action?" "Minor complaints. All dismissed, or buried." "Dismissed," Creed snapped. "You were commended as a community hero, yet multiple women have filed similar complaints against you. Are you suggesting they all conspired?" His jaw twitched. "People lie for attention." The prosecutor tilted his head. "And your body cam was conveniently off that night. Care to explain?" "It malfunctioned." "Of course. But Officer Lee's worked fine, didn't it?" Creed looked at Lee, hatred flickered. "She's trying to frame me." The prosecutor smiled faintly. "So she risked her career, her pension, and her safety to frame you?" Creed hesitated. "Yes," the courtroom buzzed. The judge rapped his gavel again. "Enough," the judge said. "Proceed." As Creed left the stand, Asha whispered to Maya, "He's unraveling." Maya looked at him. The confidence that once filled every stride was gone. His shoulders were rigid, his gaze unfocused. He wasn't untouchable anymore. He was exposed. But the fight wasn't over. That night after court, Maya found a note slid under her apartment door. "You think this is over? You have no idea who protects me." Her stomach dropped. She showed it to Lee, who reported it immediately. But deep down, Maya knew the system was slow to protect women like her. The next morning, the story broke. Another woman had come forward. Her name was Elena Morales, a teacher, with the same story, the same threats, the same badge number. Reporters flooded the courthouse steps. Creed arrived flanked by 2 lawyers now, his face hard as stone. Inside, the prosecutor called Elena to the stand. She spoke calmly, recounting her night. "He told me I looked nervous. Said he could make things easy for me if I cooperated. I said no. After that, I got pulled over 3 more times that month." Denning tried to rattle her, but she didn't flinch. "You think all of us are lying?" she said quietly. "Then why are our stories the same?" Her words hit the jury like thunder. Creed's mask cracked. During lunch recess, Maya sat outside beneath the gray sky, watching raindrops slide down her coffee cup. She thought about the women who hadn't spoken, about the ones who couldn't, and she realized something. This wasn't just about Creed. It was about a system that had taught men like him that a badge meant dominion, not duty. She wasn't fighting one man. She was fighting the silence he thrived in. Lee sat beside her quietly. "You okay?" "Scared," Maya admitted. "But it feels like..." For the first time, he's the one afraid. Day 3 of the trial. Denning delivered his final argument, a performance, smooth and manipulative. "My client dedicated his life to protecting this city. Are we really going to destroy a man's career over emotional testimonies and coincidence? Misunderstanding should not be mistaken for misconduct." He turned toward the jury, hands spread wide. "If we punish good officers for doing their jobs, who will protect us then?" The words hung heavy. Then Asha stood. Her voice, low but sharp, cut through the fog. "Who will protect us from them?" The courtroom stilled. "Power without accountability isn't protection," Asha said. "It's tyranny in uniform." Maya Torres stood up, not because she wanted attention, but because she wanted to live in a city where truth doesn't die in the shadows. She turned toward Maya, then the jury. "Courage isn't the absence of fear. It's the decision to speak anyway." The judge called recess before deliberation. Outside, a crowd had gathered, signs, chants, tears. Some shouted for justice. Others called her a liar. Maya stood at the top of the courthouse steps, looking down at the chaos. Her name, once whispered, was now everywhere. "Do you regret it?" a reporter shouted. Maya met their eyes. "No. Because silence doesn't save you, it kills you slowly." The jury deliberated for hours. Creed sat still, though sweat glistened at his temple. He thought of every time he'd gotten away with it. Every time someone looked the other way. He never believed this day would come. When the jury returned, Maya's hands were cold. Lee squeezed them gently. The foreman stood. "We find the defendant guilty on all counts." The room exploded, gasps, cries, flashes. Creed's head dropped. His lawyer's face turned pale. For a moment, everything slowed. Maya exhaled. The weight of years lifted from her chest. But even in victory, tears blurred her vision. Because justice wasn't a celebration, it was survival. Outside, reporters swarmed again. Maya's voice trembled but held steady. "This isn't just my story," she said. "It's every woman who thought no one would believe her. Every person who feared speaking up. You're not powerless. You're not alone. They count on our silence. So speak, because truth once spoken doesn't die. It multiplies." The crowd roared. From a distance, in the back of a police van, Daniel Creed watched her speak through the bars. His badge, once polished to perfection, now dull, lifeless metal. He realized too late. The woman he'd tried to silence had become the voice that ended him. But as Maya turned away from the cameras, something in her phone buzzed. A message. No name. No number. "You think it ends with him?" Her smile faded. She looked at Lee. "Someone just texted me," Maya whispered. "It's not over." Lee's expression darkened. "Then we keep fighting." Maya looked back at the courthouse, where truth had finally broken through the cracks, and she whispered, almost to herself, "Let them come." The fire that followed. The courtroom was empty now. The echoes of justice still clung to the air, but for Maya Torres, victory didn't feel like peace. It had been 3 weeks since the verdict. Daniel Creed was in custody awaiting sentencing. The department released statements about new accountability protocols and rebuilding public trust. But Maya knew better. Systems didn't change from press releases. They changed when someone forced them to look in the mirror and not look away. Still, she tried to breathe again, to work again, to live again, but the message on her phone haunted her. "You think it ends with him?" One night she left the hospital past midnight, the corridors quiet and antiseptic. As she reached her car, a shadow moved behind her. Her heart skipped. She spun, hand on her phone. A man in plain clothes stepped forward. "Miss Torres." She didn't answer. He raised both hands slowly. "Detective Ramos, Internal Affairs. I need to talk to you." Her pulse eased slightly. "At midnight?" He gave a weary shrug. Safer time. Fewer ears. They sat inside his car. He handed her a folder. Inside were photos, documents, reports, names she didn't recognize. "What is this?" "Evidence," he said. Creed wasn't working alone. Some of his arrests, they were coordinated. He supplied information to people who shouldn't have had access to it. She frowned. "What kind of people?" He hesitated. "Let's just say, when you start shining a light in the dark, you'll see more than one rat." Maya's stomach twisted. "So that message," Ramos nodded grimly. "A warning. Maybe from someone who knows Creed's gone down and wants to keep the rest hidden." "Hidden?" Maya's voice hardened. "Not if I can help it," he studied her. "You already risked everything once." "I didn't do it for revenge," she said quietly. "I did it because I can't unknow what I know." He gave a faint, sad smile. "Then you'd better be ready. The fire doesn't stop with one match." A week later, the story broke again. Whistleblower exposes internal corruption network tied to Officer Creed. This time it wasn't Maya's doing. It was leaked. And though her name wasn't mentioned, everyone knew. The department scrambled. City Hall scrambled. The chief resigned for health reasons. And yet, through the chaos, Maya's phone wouldn't stop ringing. Reporters, survivors, activists. But the calls that shook her the most weren't from journalists. They were from victims. One woman whispered, "You don't know me, but because of you I told my story." Another sobbed, "You gave me my name back." And for the first time, Maya realized her courage had rippled outward, beyond courtrooms, beyond city lines, into hearts that had been silent for too long. Still, the threats continued. Unmarked cars outside her building. Anonymous letters. "You're tearing families apart." You'll regret this. Justice doesn't protect you when the badge isn't on your side. One night, her apartment lights flickered out. The hallway was dark. And then 3 sharp knocks. She froze. Her phone buzzed. Lee's name. "Don't open the door," Lee said. "I'm 2 blocks away. Stay inside." A minute later, Lee arrived, gun drawn, eyes sharp. The hallway was empty now, but a faint smell of gasoline lingered. "They were going to burn it," Lee muttered. "They wanted to scare you off." Maya swallowed hard. "It's working," Lee turned to her. "Then make them regret trying." The next day, Maya stood before a row of cameras again, but this time not as a victim. She had joined a coalition. Activists, former officers, lawyers, mothers, called the Shield Breakers. Her voice carried through the crowd. Justice doesn't end in courtrooms. It begins in the streets. For every creed behind bars, there are 10 more hiding behind bureaucracy. We are here to end that. Cheers erupted, but inside she still felt the tremor of fear. She had learned courage isn't the absence of fear. It's the decision to stand up while shaking. Meanwhile, in a gray cell with a single window, Daniel Creed sat alone. His trial had made him infamous. The other inmates called him hero, but not kindly. Every night he replayed the courtroom, the cameras, the flash of Maya's steady gaze. He had thought power made him untouchable. Now stripped of uniform and pride, he saw what he'd really been, a man so afraid of losing control that he destroyed others to keep it. When his lawyer visited, Creed muttered, "They set me up, that's all." But when the lawyer left, the lie collapsed. The silence of the cell had no one left to fool. Months passed. The city changed, slowly, painfully. New oversight committees formed. Old officers retired or were dismissed. And the media began calling Maya something she never wanted to be, a symbol. She hated that word. Symbols were distant. She was still human, still healing. At night, she'd sit on her balcony, the city lights glittering below, and remember the woman she was before all of this. The nurse who just wanted to go home from work, that woman was gone, but the one who took her place had found something deeper, purpose. One morning, as she was leaving her apartment, she found an envelope taped to her door. No stamp. No name. Inside was a single photograph, her and Lee standing outside the courthouse the day of the verdict. Across the bottom, written in sharp black ink, "The fire's spreading." "You lit it," she frowned. The words could have been a threat or a challenge. That night, she showed it to Lee. Lee chuckled softly. They meant it as a warning. But they're right, Maya smiled faintly. Then let it burn. Weeks later, she was invited to speak at a national reform summit in Washington. She nearly said no. She wasn't a politician, just a nurse who told the truth, but Lee convinced her. "You're exactly who needs to be there." The ones who never meant to be heroes. The hall was packed. Activists, survivors, journalists. When Maya stepped up to the microphone, cameras flashed, but her voice remained steady. "I stood against one man," she said, "but what terrified me most wasn't him. It was the silence that protected him. The excuses. The good men who looked away. That's how injustice survives, not through the wicked, but through the quiet." The audience was still. "I'm not special," she continued. "I was scared. I cried. I wanted to quit. But truth doesn't need perfect people. It needs persistent ones. Every time someone says enough, a wall of silence cracks. That's how we win. Not all at once, but one voice at a time." Applause thundered through the hall, and in that moment, Maya realized something she never expected. She had gone from the hunted to the leader of a movement, but the fight wasn't over. A week after the summit, Detective Ramos called. "We got something," he said. "Evidence Creed's unit falsified dozens of reports, years' worth. Higher-ups are panicking. They want to cut a deal, but they need a face to back this investigation publicly." Maya hesitated. "You mean my face?" "Yes. Ramos, I'm tired, I know. But you're the reason we got this far. They listen when you speak." She closed her eyes. "The fire's spreading. You lit it. Then let's finish what we started," she said. The next morning, headlines lit up again. "Whistleblower joins federal inquiry into police corruption." Her name front and center. And as always, praise and hate followed hand in hand. Online, they called her the woman who broke the badge. But in the communities that once feared to speak, people called her something else. The woman who made truth contagious. Then came Creed's sentencing day. The courthouse was quieter than before, but the tension was heavier. He stood in shackles, older somehow, his arrogance wilted. The judge read aloud. 15 years imprisonment for abuse of authority, obstruction and conspiracy to cover up misconduct. Creed didn't speak. His eyes flicked to the gallery where Maya sat. For a heartbeat, their eyes met again, just like the night of the traffic stop. But now the power was gone from his gaze. All that remained was a hollow man staring at the truth that destroyed him. As the guards led him away, Maya whispered, not loud enough for anyone else to hear, "You can cage a man, but you can't cage what he tried to bury." Later, outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed again. "Maya, do you feel justice was served?" She thought for a moment. "Justice isn't a destination," she said softly. "It's a direction, and we're finally walking toward it." The crowd erupted into applause, but as she turned to leave, she noticed something at the edge of the steps. A young woman, maybe 19, clutching a folder to her chest. Eyes wide, trembling, she looked at Maya as if seeing her in person was an act of courage itself. "I watched your videos," the girl said quietly. I'm filing my report today." Maya smiled, tears stinging her eyes. "Good. You're not alone." And as the girl walked toward the courthouse doors, Maya felt something inside her settle. It hadn't been for nothing. Months later, on a sunlit afternoon, Maya stood at a community center podium. The sign behind her read, "Voices of Valor, Survivors Speak." Carla was there. Lee was there. Even Ramos. Dozens of others who had turned pain into purpose. When she finished her speech, she looked out at the crowd and said one last thing. They thought a badge made them untouchable. But truth doesn't care about badges. It cares about courage. And courage, real courage, is contagious. If my voice could start a spark, imagine what happens when all of us speak. The audience rose to their feet, clapping, crying, shouting her name. Lee leaned over and whispered, "You did it." Maya shook her head, smiling through tears. "We did." That night, as she walked home beneath a sky streaked with orange and violet, she stopped by the courthouse one last time. The steps were empty now. The same steps where she once trembled, where she once feared. She ran her hand along the cold marble railing and whispered, "For every woman who ever thought she'd never be heard, you are not invisible. You are not powerless. You are the fire they can't contain." She turned and walked away. Behind her, the city lights flickered like embers. Ahead of her, dawn waited, and though the world was still imperfect, still scarred, she smiled. Because for the first time, truth had teeth.